Good evening, everyone. I'm Forrest Lindwall, President of Friends of Stoughton Center. I appreciate your coming out this evening. This is our January meeting. They got rescheduled for March, and I think it's April, but I'm not sure in terms of weather. Absolutely amazing. We go around and we do introductions, but our select chairman, O Regan, is going to do a presentation first this evening. So if you don't know the person at the table next to you, introduce yourself, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to turn this over to O Regan, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen. Stoughton Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Forrest. Thank you. So it's great to be here. I was asked to talk about the future of the downtown. We can see the past every time we go through it, and the past is not looking prettier. So what I thought we could do is go through some of the comments and prospects that are in the downtown redevelopment aspect of the Stoughton Master Plan. For some background, the Town of Stoughton commissioned a master plan that was conducted, supervised by the Planning Board. Took a little over 2 years to get through. There are two chunks of the master plan, to overgeneralize. One is a general view of the town, and then there was a special section on revitalizing the downtown, and there is in particular an entire volume concerning redevelopment of the downtown. This is a policy document. It's not a planning document. This is something that identifies problems, concerns, opportunities, and gives some direction. It's a planning document. What happened next was, thanks to the Redevelopment Authority was asked to and did commission what is known as the Downtown Redevelopment Plan. And that plan was completed in December of 2016. For reasons we don't need to get into, the Redevelopment Authority asked to present it to the Board of Selectmen, and that didn't happen for a while, but it has happened. And as a consequence of that meeting, the Board of Selectmen has requested further assistance from the Redevelopment Authority to assist in the redevelopment of the downtown, to pick up on the policy statement of the master plan, the direction in the downtown redevelopment plan, so that we can go about bringing the downtown back. What I'd like to spend a few minutes on today is to reflect on why the downtown is the way it is. Without boring you to tears, there are reasons why our downtown is the way it is. There are reasons why driving through our downtown is like trying to swim through an egg beater, all right? Because the traffic flow doesn't work. There are reasons why businesses left our downtown. We'll see some of that in a minute. But there are all kinds of opportunities. And what I'd like to ask your help to do is to take advantage of the opportunities that we have. Understand that government policies and practices created the environment in the downtown that we now have. Private people don't build roads. Government lays out roads and builds roads. Private people don't create zoning bylaws. Government creates zoning bylaws. Private people don't put site restrictions and height restrictions and all kinds of other things on properties. Government does that. If we want to see the downtown come back, we need to recognize that government has a big role to play in making it come back. My own view as a member of the Board of Selectmen is we need to find that tipping point in government policy for the downtown, to adopt those kinds of government policies that tip the scales to promote and attract reliable private investment in the downtown. So let's talk a minute about the crater in the downtown, the Malcolm and Parsons building. We could do an autopsy on why that building the way it is. Autopsies are never pretty. If you've ever seen one, and I've seen pictures of one, they're really not a pretty thing to do. But generally speaking, there's a whole slew of policy failures that have come together in that project. Density, height, affordability restrictions, parking, all of them come together to make that building and that site difficult under the current land use plan zoning bylaw that we have. And so what we see at some levels of government is what are the fixes that need to be done in order to make that project go? How do we scrape 4 parking spaces? Because that's apparently what the project needs, 4 parking spaces. That's not where the Board of Selectmen is. That's not our responsibility. But our responsibility is to take those signs for the policies and directions that the town should go in and address them. And the bottom line of that project is the economics of the downtown do not make it worthwhile right now for an investor to invest in that project in a size and in a scale that will give that investor the return on the size and scale of a project the town may want. If the original project was bigger, this developer believes he needs more parking spaces and more units to make it affordable. So that's what the market is telling us. And if you drive through the downtown and you see the vacancies, you can see the market is telling us we need to do things. One of the lessons from the master plan, and many of the meetings for the master plan committee happened right here, where we need to do something big. We need to do something significant to change the direction of the downtown. So one of the things that I want to talk to you about is a project to acquire the post office site, to develop that site into a park or a green. That was a major focus of the master plan committee on redeveloping the downtown. Now, ironically, if you listen to some of the commentary why we shouldn't do that, one of the commentaries we're getting is that we need more parking. For what? Okay. If there's a dearth of business in the downtown, right? There's no lack of parking if you drive through most of the time, right? So there's plenty of parking. We need it for more parking. One of the other comments I've heard recently is, well, if we turn that into a town park and take it away from the post office, think of the tax money we'll lose, which I asked the person who said that to me, tell me the last time the post office paid taxes in the town of Stoughton. So there's resistance. There's resistance to the notion that we do something big. But ask yourselves, as you drive through the square on your way home tonight, will any little things make a difference? What big thing could we do? What will make the downtown attractive for people to live in and work in and come and enjoy? And that's what we're seeking to do. That's what the master plan did. Think, not all of it went, but think of close to $200,000 in town revenue went into people who study this stuff for a living, who spent days and days and days meeting in town. The volunteers, many of you, going to the visioning meetings and the planning meetings and the interaction meetings, all of the focus groups that Pam McCarthy has done on the downtown, all contributing to the direction that I hope we'll talk about today and join in. And so what does that mean? What's the ask of you? The ask of you is to be involved and be dedicated to get the job done. If you agree that we need to do big things to get the downtown to turn around, but you don't think the master plan idea of a green and some other and traffic violation is the way to do it, join in and get it done. If you do see these things as opportunities, then we need you to join in and make it happen. In town meeting and the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board, join in to make it happen. So there are arrows on this machine. So what our experts taught us is that in order to succeed in getting the downtown to come back, we need first to find a way as a reason for people to come to the downtown. Now, there is a business, House of Brews, very successful business. We see that all the time. They are a reason for people to come. There was some skepticism, if they build it, no one will come, and we see different. It's a great place for the town and the community. We should see that as a reference point for what we can do if we do big things. The owners of that business did big things for them, and look at what's happening. And as a community, aren't we proud of that business, and aren't we proud of those residents of Stoughton who've made it go? Well, we can do more. So we create a reason to come to the downtown that attracts people, that creates customers. We have an environment that serves the customers well. people come back. And then they spread the word that this is a place. What we can see in some of the businesses is that from the initial blast, and there's a couple of other restaurants that have opened, from the initial blast of locals who are curious, if you talk to some of the business owners, the locals who have gone in, not so much. But they're finding that people are coming from Canton and Easton and Sharon because word has spread that this is a good place to go and they haven't been here. That's a good thing. Then more people come. And then we get more businesses come, and we begin the cycle of success instead of the downward spiral of, let's call it, not success. So why are we here? All right, our job's to bring the downtown is, I think, in part to understand how we got here in the first place. If you go through some other communities that have a less distressed downtown, maybe even a vibrant downtown, what you will not see is business districts scattered all over the town. The town adopted a policy, the government adopted a policy, that when they're zoning in their land use planning, they would concentrate business and commercial activity in an area. And if you look at how some of these business zones developed, they spread from the middle and they've grown out, but you don't have anything anywhere all the time, even by variance or special permit. This is a map. This is a map of our general business zone in the town of Stoughton. And as you can see, the opportunity for general business is all over the place. This does affect what happens in our downtown. Because if you can go anywhere, anytime, and put anything up, you get that business. The policy question is this the way we want the town to develop? What we need to ask ourselves, if we're Friends of Stoughton Center, is are we going to try to build the town back and at the same time have all these competing business zones for the same kind of business we're trying to attract to the town? So it isn't just this zoning district. And then look at what we've got in this zoning district, okay? You've got the central business district, which is shown in green, and those uses are particular for the downtown. And then you've got general business, which is the yellowish brown. So you've got a business zone within a business zone. Different businesses can be used. Some overlap. How do we define that better so the uses are clearer and the business development is better? We need to work on that. Going north, this is a closer view, and the brownish color on the right is Washington Street going up to the Canton line. You can see Stoughton Center in the green. Look how much business zone is up there. Don't get me wrong, I think business is great. We want business, but we need to be deliberate in where we put it so one business feeds another, and the town gets the benefit of all of that development. And similar uses go in similar places, so we develop a synergy in what goes. Anything, anywhere, all the time means, you know, you have a scattering of stuff, and what's next, which is what we have. What this tells us, especially going north of Stoughton, is that we need to look at all of this in the long term, not in the short term. Stoughton turned into what it is in the span of 30 or 40 years. When my wife and I moved here in the mid-'80s, every storefront had something in it. It was busy, the theater was working, and we're told even then it wasn't like what it was before. And then it's gone on, it's taken that period of time. Land use planning means we look ahead on what it is we want it to look like in 10, 15, 20, and 25 years as the properties turn over. Not to threaten any of the current uses, but to say, we have a vision for the town, and we want you to join in, and we adjust our zoning. So going north with any kind of establishment that wants to go in, we need to think carefully about how to work with those businesses and property owners to focus our policy on what do we want in the downtown. We can't put everything in the downtown, but we should try to focus what we do want in the downtown in our land use policies. Now, the same is true, but to a lesser extent, south of Stoughton Center, because you can see the middle line on this zoning map, the yellowish brown, is general business district going south of Stoughton Center. And you can see towards the eastern line at the bottom, a large swath of general business. So that is possible to develop more into a competing use for the downtown. Is that what we want? Will it make a difference? I think history shows it will. And now look at this. So this is on the upper right-hand corner in the blue. These are well, the blue means industrial. So if you take a look at the business corridor here, one of the things you'll see is there's a bunch of industrial uses scattered in. Is that compatible with what we want? Does that help, talking about the downtown, does that help focus commercial and business activity to our downtown? If it isn't, then we should think about it. But the more interesting part is this big blue industrial district. Because in this big blue industrial district, we have IKEA and we have Target. How many people think IKEA and Target are industrial uses? They're not. But because of the way our zoning bylaw was written, it was possible for a developer to come in and put in those large, big box places. Good citizens in the community, good taxpayers. But what does it tell us? It tells us that if you do special permits and variances, you can put these uses in. Do these businesses detract from the downtown business? Maybe. We saw a hardware store that was here for a long time go out of business shortly after Target came in. We saw other businesses in the downtown move shortly after some of these other businesses came in. So we should think, when we do this zoning, how it affects the downtown, because it will, and make a deliberate choice, and not leave it up to a group of 3 people on a particular board to allow a variance or a special permit, which is how it could happen. Think ahead. There are consequences, and it does all fit together. So for the downtown, what we on the Board of Selectmen took a look at, prompted by the downtown redevelopment study, is a map. This is a map of decadent conditions. These are lots and buildings that contribute, and I won't try to get into how decadent is defined under the bylaws, but basically it's not pleasant property. It's unoccupied. It's not maintained. It is not used, or if it's used, it's not used to its highest and best use. The gray areas you see are properties that, under the standard for the state program, these are properties that contribute to the decadent state of the downtown. It's a lot of property. Now, interesting in here is the post office site, and this is the site where the Stoughton Depot is and the parking lot for the depot. So you ask, why do these indicate a contribution to blight in the downtown? Look at them. Just look at them. Do they promote highest and best use? Are they an attractive place for people to come to live, shop, and work? No. These are things we can do something about relatively quickly. One of the major focuses that we worked on in this process was, what can we do, what can government do easiest and quickest to jumpstart the development? Why? To find that tipping point. To find the tipping point where private investment will come in and say it's worth the risk in the town of Stoughton to assist in the development. There are 8 steps we were taught by these consultants. And by the way, this is a project that every member of the Master Plan Committee signed. You can see our signatures on the document. These are the steps. Acquire the railroad station and adjacent parcel. I can tell you that we are very close to acquiring the railroad station. There is essentially one little term that we're finalizing between the state and us to acquire that, and that problem may go away. It's a daily issue, and I want to acknowledge Representative Kafka and Ted Phillips from his office here. We're in touch with them probably more than they would like us to be in touch with them. And they are assisting us very, very heavily to get that done. It is a day-to-day thing for that issue to be solved. The greening of the downtown, which is what I'm going to spend a little more time on. That is, make it a place where it's happy, that people can go to, that it looks nice, that it's fun. Looking at Wyman Street as a corridor for arts, entertainment, restaurants. Why? Because as you'll see in a minute, there's a sense from the folks who've seen successful redevelopment of a downtown, that if it's anything anywhere all the time, because something might, and I don't want to say this too glibly, catch fire in the downtown, that it might work. Their advice to us was that's really not necessarily a course for success, because if you spread everything out, you don't get the synergy, you don't get the development, you don't get the spur of attraction. People might not want to live on the same street as people go out to a restaurant, noise, congestion, traffic, things like that. So you want to have an allocation of those uses that makes sense. Infill development, that's just finding empty spots and making the spots come up. I just want to, and then to focus on Porter Street, how to make Porter Street come back, the Railroad Street South, Washington Street in general, and then the neighborhoods. Now, I don't mean to minimize these, but the focal point that I'd like to ask you to jumpstart that the Board of Selectmen believes in and has endorsed and is working hard on, with Pam McCarthy as our lead person for interaction with the Postal Service, is number 2, the greening of the downtown and why that will make a difference. A few minutes ago, I talked to you about the areas of the downtown and how the idea that was presented to us was to identify uses and target the development of the downtown according to those uses. So this is generally speaking how the study of our downtown, tons of hours, lots of visioning with business and residents, a resident of the town to come up with this. And you can see Porter Street, civic and residential use, the Great Lawn, a living room for the town, retail along Wyman Street, arts and entertainment to lead up to the revitalized State Theater as a general approach to the downtown, which means we have to focus our land use policies, to attract and point development in these areas and not just leave it. So thankfully, the Redevelopment Authority did a wonderful job with their study. And in response to that study, one of the first things this new Board of Selectmen did was invite the Redevelopment Authority to present their downtown redevelopment plan. And after we reviewed it, we asked them if they would be willing to undertake certain specific responsibilities toward the downtown. And thankfully, they have said yes, which is good because we want to redevelop the downtown, and they are a redevelopment authority. It's good how those things kind of fit together. And this is the area that the Redevelopment Authority has indicated they will accept as a zone for them to concentrate on. And you'll see it includes the depot area, the post office area. There is a mixed-use development approved for this site by the zoning board. There's a large mill building here that can do a lot for the community as we go forward. And so between these sites and the State Theater and this site, the Redevelopment Authority has indicated they will work with us. It doesn't mean that the Redevelopment Authority will do everything. We're going to do what we need to do to tip the balance to get private investment to come in to create an opportunity. And that includes looking at our zoning so that we can redefine what we want. Let's talk about good zoning and difficult zoning. What we learned is that the best zoning makes it easy for developers to come in. Right? We define in our land use policy, which is what the zoning bylaw is, what we'd like. Clear, simple to understand, as of right development. That means someone in the real estate business can look at our downtown and say, I'm not saying there's no approval process, I'm not saying that everything, you come in and you can build everything you want, but they can look and they can see clear demarcations of what can be built, and they can figure out that it's profitable. And they can see that there's reasonable contours of what they will be asked to do, either with the planning board or zoning board or some other permit granting authority. So it doesn't take, as in the case of the Malcolm and Parsons project, where are we, 4 years since the application was filed, 2 years since the permit was voted February 25th, 2016, and a shovel has yet to turn on that property. we can do better, and part of it is as of right zoning that's clear and articulates what we need to do without sacrificing the character and quality of the downtown that we want. And thankfully, the redevelopment authority has said they will do that. Yes.
Robert, would you, you either agree or disagree? I would say that to redevelop Stoughton, the main place would be that Malcolm Parson property by building that new apartment with the architect, the way they had it coming around. That would be like the beginning.
When that starts, Chris's question was, do I agree that the Malcolm Parsons project will be the beginning of getting the downtown going? I think it could be. I think if...
Because I'm looking at the architect.
That's
I
right.
look at the way, because I've been around to all the other places on ads and everything, you know, and when I seen the architect there, that would, to me, that would be the...
It would be.
beginning. So
But we
move
need to
on.
keep going because, you know, a 4-year process to get something up and going. So this is the recommended use map, all right? This is a little more detailed than the arrows that I showed you. Now, is this adopted by anybody as policy? No. Is this what we absolutely will? It's up to the people in the town to do. And this is what I mean by engagement by all of you as Friends of Stoughton Center. These are the kinds of things that as Friends of Stoughton Center, whoever is on the Board of Selectmen needs your help to guide to get us done. These are the kinds of things that as Friends of Stoughton Center, we all need to go to the planning board and insist that they spend their time working on these projects because frankly, they haven't been. Right? And we need to be open to looking at what these uses are to accommodate what we may not have heard from the current residents and businesses in there to make sure that people understand we're not trying to hurt anybody, we're just trying to raise the sea because if you're high, a rising tide lifts all boats. But as you can see in the middle, open space. And if you've driven around communities that have open space in the middle of their downtown, you can see those communities, downtown areas are more vibrant. Easy example, look at downtown Springfield. Now, when we drove our son out to school a few years ago, we got off the interstate, and we would, instead of eating at the restaurants along the interstate, we would drive into the downtowns. And one thing that struck us was what I just said. In the communities that had some sort of green space for the downtown, a big park, a small park, it made a difference. It really did make a difference in the livability, in the happiness of the town as a place to be. And don't we want to live in a place where the people who live, work, and visit us find it a happy place? That's why we think people will come. So here's a concept drawing from a bird of what the downtown area might look like if we had this green. This is just a concept drawing, but you can see the opportunities. You can see from the previous drawings what this presents for the town to have, and in the middle, you see this space, and you see the uses building up. This is a big venture. This is doing something big. So, is that a better use than a paved parking lot that is empty most of the time, that is no longer used to deliver mail to be sorted in the back of the post office? Will we lose any tax revenue by changing this? No. What's our source of funding for this? Well, several years ago, the townspeople decided to adopt the Community Preservation Act. There are 3 purposes for the Community Preservation Act. One of them is recreation use. Another one is open space. Looks like open space and recreation. The money is already here. So as a selectman, I view one of my major responsibilities, and I think my colleagues on the board view it, as a responsibility to look out for manage the assets and the resources of the town. So I look at a bank account that the Community Preservation Committee has. We don't have any authority over it, but we can ask. I look at a bank account that the Community Preservation has with assets. Those are our assets as taxpayers in the bank. I look at this opportunity, which we have learned through the master plan process, is an opportunity to acquire another asset that will give us a better return and improve the quality of our town. It's not a loss of money, it's not a waste of money, it's changing an asset from one form, which is green, but relatively unproductive, to another form that we see as green and much more productive and spurs the change in the town that we want. How do we do it? Well, there are moving pieces, and this is what your Board of Selectmen is now working very hard with the Redevelopment Authority, and we're engaging with the Planning Board to make happen. Parcel 31 that you see there is the current post office site. We're seeking to acquire that. As I said, Mrs. McCarthy is dealing with the Postal Service. We have two members of the Redevelopment Authority, Forrest Lindwall and Lou Gito, who provided great help and are continuing to provide great help in that effort. They have a process where communities can acquire post office sites. And there is, as you might imagine, it's the federal government, so nothing is easy. But there's a host of options within their scheme for a community to acquire a post office site and repurpose the site. And one of the options, which I hope we can take advantage of, is if you can find a way to accommodate the post office, you can acquire their site for $1. Not bad. That'd be a good price. The other range, of course, is that you buy it. And where we will wind up, if we can do this, is somewhere in the middle. What we know is that thanks to the effort of the legislative delegation and Secretary Ash, the Secretary of Communities and Development, is the state has identified $250,000 to the town to assist us in redeveloping the downtown. The Board of Selectmen has voted to request the Secretary to allow us to use that in the relocation of the post office. We had a wonderful meeting with Secretary Ash a little over a year ago, and when we discussed the master plan's focus on this sort of development, Secretary Ash was one of the leaders in the redevelopment of Chelsea. If you've been to Chelsea lately and you remember it was like 20 years ago, you can understand why his endorsement of this means something. He likes this plan. So he's receptive to this plan. He sees this as a good use of our tax money that we sent to the state, and they're good enough to send back. So that's step one. Hopefully for $1, because we have other opportunities for the post office, and we'll try to use them. Step two is looking at the train depot parking area and what advantage we can take for that in greening up the square. Step three. Well, this is right here is the train depot with the tower and parking that we will acquire when we take title to that. And this is the Randolph Savings Bank site. So we have asked the Redevelopment Authority to work with us on the Randolph Savings Bank site, and we continue to talk with them about that option. But the Randolph Savings Bank site has, 40 parking spaces? The Randolph Savings Bank site used to be a bank. They have teller stations. When you go to the post office, what do? You go to a counter, and it's like teller stations. So we have had some conversation with the notion that we could relocate the post office as one option to that site. And there's other options. But that site will give us opportunities that we do not now have. And the other thing I emphasize is it's an asset. So if however it's acquired, this is an opportunity that came and will go. It's an asset. So if we have money over here and land over here, is it an opportunity to take advantage of? And yes. If we decide that the uses we could see for that project aren't likely, we sell it. But we take advantage of the opportunity. If you look back over time and you read the downtown redevelopment studies that literally go back to 1954 or 1957, what you will see, and it will hurt, is a number of opportunities that the town was presented with that for one reason or another we didn't take. And we didn't take because it wasn't perfect. And because it wasn't perfect, we didn't make things better. And because we didn't make things better, they became worse, right? So these are opportunities, and there's opportunities for discussion.
Robert?
So that, let me just, I'm going to open for, okay. So this is the concept drawing of a concept drawing of what the downtown could look like. We have the talent. A lot of it is in this room. We have the leadership. A lot of it is right here. We have the commitment because we had many, many people coming to the visioning studies of the master plan. We just need to do it. We have to stop being afraid of not doing something because something better might come along. Because when we do that, something worse is coming. And we have to understand that every time we don't make a decision or pass on an opportunity, we are making a decision. And every time we do that, we're making a decision that's what's there, and what will happen by itself is what we prefer against the opportunities we could direct for ourselves. So we can do this. We can do, if you don't like this and you can think of a better plan, I don't know anybody on the Board of Selectmen who would ask you to go away. We'd like to hear it from you. Whatever comments you have to make it better, we'd like to hear. So I think that's what I was asked to talk about. And that's what the vision is, or a vision is, for the downtown. It can't happen by itself. By itself, it will get worse. By itself, how does it affect us all? It affects, are we happy when we go there? No. Are we happy when we tell people, we're from the town of Stoughton, and they say, oh, I've been through that downtown, and it's really not looking too good? Do we have a convenient place to go if we want to stop after dinner or on the weekend? All the things about quality of life. We can do better, and we should. So my ask of you, in exchange for the ask to come talk to you, is pitch in, advocate. Don't say later is good enough, because it's not. Insist on clear direction and performance, and from your public officials, insist on a timeline and insist on accountability. Most of us volunteers. So if we say to you, we're jammed, most of us will ask you if you can help. Please help, whatever you can do. That's how we can make the downtown better. So.
Do you have time for questions and answers?
Absolutely. I have like 10 minutes, and then I have to be up at the CPC.
I just want to remind you of one thing, and then you can moderate Q&A. On the depot, as has been explained before, going forward, under whether it's acquired using CPC funds or town funds, it could be managed going forward by a nonprofit. That the Friends of Stoughton Center Board of Directors did take a vote that they would be willing to step forward and do that and manage that going forward. And now Q&A is up to you.
Can I just speak to that? We mentioned this when we first re-engaged with the state on closing the Stoughton Depot deal, because you've got a number of views on what to do with the depot. And so what I hope the Board of Selectmen will do is, I don't want to jinx it by having these kind of conversations before we close, because the easiest way, is to make a plan before you have anything to plan with. But in the ideal world we don't live in, we'll get a deed on Friday. We'll post the agenda by 12:30, and on Tuesday night we'll have a community session for the Board of Selectmen and invite contributions from the community on what the use should be and how to do it, so that we can sift through the options and come up with a solution that makes sense, for everybody. Because there is a segment of town that believes some sort of commercial use would be better, and there's a strong segment of town that believes a civic use would be better. We don't know. But that's the idea we have to address that point. Immediately after title passes, but not before, so we don't jinx it. Anyway. Cynthia. I'm sorry, Ms. Walsh.
My name is Cynthia Walsh. From the perspective of having lived in Stoughton since 1948, I can remember a vibrant square. But what I'm concerned about with any new plan is to hurt the people that are there now. On Porter Street, across from the site of the post office, is the House of Brews, and right next to it is a Brazilian market. Now, I patronize the... Is there anyone who can't hear me?
It's for the TV. I liked Phil Donahue. Miss Walsh.
Knock it off, Phil.
No, just so that
Besides the House of Brews, I patronize the House of Brews, and I was talking to the co-owner. Now, it happens that I was sitting in the front window, and I do this every week. I go there at least once a week. The Brazilian market is doing an unbelievable takeout business. And I spoke to her about that. She said yes. And in fact, when they occasionally run out of a meat product, they go next door. That's the kind of relationship they have. My concern is right now, with the House of Brews, which is popular, especially in the evening, and the market, which I observe between, say, 4 and 7 in the evening, with the takeout business, people park at the post office. They park in the current post office parking, jump over to get their takeout, and if it's music night at the House of Brews, they park there. Now, I know there's a big sign, they're going to be towed away, but I don't think that happens. My concern is if we turn all of that post office area into green space, we're putting those two businesses out of business. And I don't think I want to be the one to go up to them and say, it's for the greater good.
So our goal is the opposite of letting that happen. And that's a reason why the Board of Selectmen asked for our Economic Development Coordinator to be the point person for this. And it's why the Board of Selectmen asked the Redevelopment Authority, one of the reasons, to take responsibility for this zone, so that working together, whatever is wound up in the actual footprint for these changes improves the business climate and doesn't take away from the business climate, so that parking is more available for businesses and more convenient for customers than it is now. Pam.
I just wanted to mention that the parking management plan that I've been working on is going to be completed shortly, and I believe the date is May 1st that the consultant is going to present the final draft before the Board of Selectmen, and the public will be able to present comments at that meeting. And if you can see if there's anything that you think is left out of there. But that's one of the things they're concentrating on, is how to make it so that the parking is able to get people to go to the businesses more, because the survey that I did basically shows that I think up to 70% of people are going outside of the downtown to run errands and shop because they don't like the available parking situation. But that's something the plan's going to address, so you can feel free to come to that meeting and comment on the plan.
Thanks.
I'd like to echo what Ms. Cynthia Walsh said. I am a little concerned about the parking. Has anyone considered putting the park somewhere else and turning that proposed green space into a parking lot? That would encourage development of restaurants. People could park their cars in there, and they'd have instant rear access to the restaurants. That would really encourage the development and business of restaurants there, as well as the House of Brews and the Brazilian market. And honestly, you could put a park anywhere, but a parking lot is dependent, the location is dependent on where the businesses are. Thank you.
So the answer to that is yes, and the next answer is we're not done, but in the course of debating all of these options, one option that the Master Plan Committee was presented and the consultants was to turn that space into parking. And then the next question is, there was an identified need to green up the downtown. That is open. Most of it is unbuilt upon, and so the ability to turn it into green space is drastically less expensive than to acquire property that has buildings on it to turn it into green space. So one of the things, and the parking study will help us do that, is balance what you're talking about. And the other thing to look at is a goal. If we go back to focusing what the uses are, what the consultants have told us is, don't have those uses spread out all over the place. So the guidance we've received as a town is to try to focus development of the restaurant and cultural activity in an area where you can then use that to develop the parking that you want. So, I mean, the answer is yes, parking needs to be addressed, and if kicking this around, it means that the town reconsiders. But I think, and I think the other members of the Master Plan Committee would agree, days and days were spent on that, and it tipped on Greenspace for all of the other benefits to the surrounding area, including restaurant and other use that it would have. Walter.
If we are so fortunate to acquire the post office, I think a compromise would be in order. The compromise would be on the prime property in Stoughton Center, 1.4 acres. That's the post office. It used to be a car lot. There was no parking when it was a car lot. There's really no parking when the post office is there, under the post office, except when the post office is closed. Previously, the postmaster in years past gated it off so you couldn't park in the parking lot. It was a waste. My idea would certainly be a little bit of green space, like 10%, which has been discussed over the years, but certainly parking. And maybe a gazebo, some benches, to make the downtown look more attractive. However, by putting parking in that 1.4 acres of land, what you could do is to have the properties on Washington Street utilize their back doors. People could park in the post office lot to go in the back doors of those businesses on Washington. They could also convert the post office, which is a 10,800 square foot building, into something like 5 2,000 square foot units for more businesses to attract people to the downtown area. And with the 800 square feet left over, we could have a downtown cultural area across from the town hall that might even have a picture, a portrait, or a statue of Governor Stoughton, who I'm sure nobody in this room knows what he looks like, but it doesn't matter. It just could be something our local artists could have display their art, and children to all the schools could have their art contests there. It would just be a wonderful area for the downtown. So in my view, I'd hate to see no parking there, which wouldn't benefit, as was previously mentioned, the House of Brews and others, and even utilizing the back doors of the buildings at front on Washington Street. Then you could, the other thing I was thinking, you could shut down Wyman Street for Stoughton Day and have all the vendors out there. Just shut it down like you do it once a year. It just seems like that's too good of an opportunity to miss in terms of benefiting so many ways. The House of Brews could park there, because if you stop them, they could be hurting financially, I'm sure. So there's a lot of benefits, but I agree with open space, but 10% would be adequate in my view. And the gazebo, benches, that would benefit greatly. So I'm sorry, I could go on forever on this, because I've thought it through. I was at Wyman Street today. I came out of Stoughton Bakery, and I happened to look up at the tower at the train station, and it said 11 o'clock. It's stuck on 11 o'clock. I said, we're in the 11th hour. And that's a good thing, because we got more accomplished in the last 4 or 5 years than we have in the last 50 years, when urban renewal was denied. But anyway,
So
talk about that later.
There were probably 900 other drawings of the downtown that had different configurations for that space. Half of it parking, a third of it parking, some of it on the left, some of it on the right. The actual planning and commitment will come, in due course. I think if all of you folks believe that this is an opportunity that we should not let pass by, that's the first thing we need to work on, with a commitment to get it right while we're doing it. That's what I was hoping to accomplish here.
Thank you. John Bowen with Hub Edge Realty. I can't tell you, Mr. O Regan, that I want to do push-ups. You've got me very excited here. I think that the best idea for that space is just all green space. Now, if any of you folks have ever been to the Lawn on D, which is a manufactured green space right by the all the new development in the Seaport District, it is spectacularly successful, and it's about 1.4 acres. and they have live events there. They have, they do serve alcohol during their shows. I'm not saying that you have to serve alcohol, but they have bands there. They have these, on Instagram, these people are going crazy. Everybody takes photos in these little lit circles. I mean, if you go on Instagram, it's very, very popular. Imagine having all of that green space in downtown Stoughton, having a band backing up against the brick building on Washington Street, looking over where the trains come in and out. You can watch the trains come in and out to the depot, people going over to the depot. Maybe it's a retail area with some, whatever, maybe a little restaurant. People will maybe people come from Boston into Stoughton Center by rail. They don't even have to walk 20 feet, and they come in and they start watching some bands on a Friday night. So I think that parking is not an issue because nobody goes to Stoughton Center as it is. They drive right through. So and there are other areas for parking. This is a prime area for open space, which Stoughton Center does not have. So
I have to get up to another meeting. I'd love to take maybe one more question if you have it, and no offense if you don't. It's been great. Oh, Pam.
Okay, first of all, I think we all want to thank you for coming here tonight. But since you're here, I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about very quickly the Beautification Committee, which is a very active committee in this group, and a number of those people are here tonight. They're the ones that do all the plantings in the downtown. And I know you don't have time to address it tonight, but we were just hoping that you would consider with the Board of Selectmen adopting a policy so that they can fundraise through the water bill, which was very successful. They raised over $2,200 the first time that we did it, but I realized we didn't have the proper permissions. And the other thing is the DPW has been very helpful with helping to water, but it's more of a favor than an official duty of the DPW. That maybe in the future you could consider having that be more of an official duty, because the committee does such a wonderful job and they'd plant even more, but they're afraid of things dying if they don't have enough support with the watering. So maybe those are things you can address in the future.
I can address them now. So one general thing, and I hope no one takes offense at this, it might come out wrong. One of the challenges we have in a community is understanding the limits to what volunteers can do, working as hard and as dedicated as all of you volunteers are. There's only so much that volunteers can do. And that's both in terms of just available time and talent and expertise and responsibility. The kinds of things that Pam identified, kind of crossed the line, in my view, between what's reasonable to ask volunteers to do and, if we want a vibrant downtown, what's reasonable for the town to expect its Public Works Department to do. So as we work at this budget, we have what's called a water buffalo that can go around and remotely water. We had a tough time with the budget this year, but maybe we'll get Ted Phillips to find another $50,000 the state can't use and send it to us so we can, I'm getting a big no. So, but hopefully what will happen is that our revenue figures will continue to get better. What I'd like to do is to see the DPW continue to have a part-time employee, and I don't know what the hours would be, through the middle of September. And the responsibility would be to do this watering. And I would like to see an engagement with the town and this group and the Beautification Committee to come up with ways where if you do a project, the ongoing maintenance get handed over to the community, because we should all be doing it. And that's, that's a goal we have to do. I mean, the white elephant or pink elephant in the room is we've had a change in government recently in the past few months. Doing these kinds of things are truly part of the commitment this Board of Selectmen has made to the people of the town, and understanding where the line is between what we can ask volunteers to do and what town should do is one of them. So, we've heard this. If there's other areas that you think the town should pitch in or help or take responsibility, let us know through Pam. And you got one selectman, if I get back in, who's committed to do it. And I think you'd be hard-pressed to find any other member who wouldn't find a way to make it happen. So I have to skidoo. Thank you all very much for your attention.